the integral movement. So what we're going to do is going to be talking about Wilbur and Erwin. Is Erwin here? Oh, great. This is going to be much less embarrassing to do. Okay, so what are we talking about in integral theory? We're talking about fish. We're talking about flying stars. We're talking about calculators. We're talking about, there we go, an integration of mind, body, spirit, core, nature, culture, in all the different disciplines and experiences of human beings. How can we use it all? How can we integrate it? How can we become whole human beings and take advantage of the whole range of human experience? So let's talk about Dr. Laszlo, Professor Herr Doctor. As he told you this morning, PhD from the Sorbonne, a lot of different prizes, a lot of different nominations, including 2 for the Peace Prize, Nobel. And he's been a professor of philosophy at various schools, universities throughout the world. And he's been a futurist, he's been a political specialist as well. So, and as founder of the Club of Budapest, we have found him to be our fearless leader. So, take the next slide. That's just for me in case I forget anything. Okay, so let us talk about the intellectual biography of each of these people. Wilbur. So there are about 80 books by Laszlo. And let's just take a look at, see, he's starting here in 62, and he's talking about individualism, collectivism, political power, the communist ideology in Hungary. Just keep going. And system, now he's talking about Whitehead, system study, goals for mankind, the report to the Club of Rome, a systems view of the world, general systems, systems philosophy. And you can see there's various, in all his books, there are themes about system study, themes about peace, themes of using the global community, of working politics to create international development, including work in various countries, including at the top of here, food and agriculture, keep going. African and Arab cooperation. Now, this is page 1. Let's look at page 2. Just keep it going. So here we've got disarmament, new evolutionary paradigm, changing world, the creative cosmos. Now, a lot of these books are done with other people. So a lot of these books have been written with other people. A lot of these books have been edited. Some of the books is like a foreword or a preface. Now let's stop here for a second, because here in this yellow one is the first time he's talking about an integral theory of everything. There are little indications of it in some of his early books, but this is the first time it's really, he really begins to talk about the integral approach and an integral theory. So, going along with the third millennium, more futurism, theory of practice, evolutionary management, a little business here, more futurism, and then consciousness. Here he's got really talking about integral science, 2003, and then his most recent books. I recommend this one, Cosmos. This is a terrific book. It's got everything I've had a great conversation about in the last 5 years. The guy is amazing. He keeps getting all these new reports and putting them together in one book for you to learn or use. And we're talking about the science of the Akashic field here, because that's where he sort of first elucidated his integral theory of everything, but in Cosmos he talks about it again. So this is one of my favorites here. I've read about 10 in the last 2 weeks. I read some of I've read some of the other ones earlier, but I've probably forgotten most of them. So let's take a look at Ken Wilber's intellectual biography. He's had about 27 books, and he starts in 1977 with The Spectrum of Consciousness. And this is the book for which he was called the Einstein of Consciousness. Especially for therapists, it gave a way of understanding how to apply spirituality and different levels of psychology for different psychological problems. He wrote a book about the holographic paradigm. It was edited, actually, and talked about most of the specialists. Another one, Quantum Questions, 84, he got all the original people who, scientists who worked on the quantum theory, and to talk about what's the quantum nature of reality. Not one of them thought that the quantum level was about spirituality. In fact, because they did not find answers to consciousness and spirituality in their work, all of them, Schrödinger started studying Vedanta. Niels Bohr, I think, studied Buddhism. I'm sure Erwin knows. But, so, every one of these people, original quantum scientists, they became interested in spiritual traditions because the physics didn't do it. So they became metaphysics or metaphysicians and studied it. But it was outside of the science. Let's go. So, A Brief History of Everything is where Ken Wilber started talking about integral theory. He had it in a book, and then he started The Theory of Everything. That was the title of his book in 2000. And then books about integral spirituality. So we can see there's a kind of theme here, too, that's different from Irvin's. It's more about consciousness, spirituality from the beginning. Although he has written books about evolution and psychology, but nothing yet about world development or politics. So, let's take a look at something really quantitative now, since we're scientists here. How come they're getting this kind of reputation and being known as integral specialists in the world? Well, here's the Irvin's book. He's got 74 books, and in translation, Barnes & Noble says he has 199 books. The sales rank for his Theory of Everything is number 5,144, 675 Amazon results. It's really difficult getting research on all his books because I'm sure some have been lost. Ken's books, now he's got 2,054 results in Amazon, and his TOE is behind Irvin's, but both of them have thousands, millions of books out there. So the world is being influenced into getting into a integral approach in many different worlds. So I want to compare this for a second. So this is my particular point of view, because I've been a journalist myself, and I'm in understanding these people. I've known Ken for about 30 years, and Irvin and I really just met last night for the first time, personally. But from what I can get of studying his life and his books so far, is that we find there's some experiences that have influenced Dr. Laszlo's life. Being a pianist, as he said, recognized as a prodigy at nine years old. Being interested in politics, economics, systems theory, future studies, academia. He's really interested in the metaphysics of science. How in science we can find answers to internal spiritual questions. And what I find, like I said, in many of his books, like Cosmos, he's a wonderful journalist in the sense of being able to scan the whole world and bring into the integral theory all the new, most of the new developments that I've ever been aware of. And every time I read them, I find several ones that I've never come across. And it's sort of autobiographical because there is a theme in here about his early work when he lived in behind the Iron Curtain in communist countries, and talked about what was the philosophy behind the Iron Curtain. And you know, there's some themes about liberty, and there's some themes about his own experiences in the paranormal, healing, physics. And he seems to be, there's a cluster of values around what's important is peace. So let's take a look at Wilbur. He started out as a biochemist. He's more interested in the science of metaphysics. That is, how does metaphysics work? How do you learn metaphysics? How do you teach it to other people? Psychology, religious studies. He wrote several books on science and religion, on the nature of religions. He's an autodidact like Irvin. However, may I call you Irvin? Thank you. Correct my pronunciation, don't get that. So, they're both autodidacts, but Ken has spent most of his time outside of academia. Irvin worked as a professor, worked in schools, he did theses, you know, other things. And so it's like a slight difference here. And then Ken's interested in spiritual growth. He's more, instead of a collector or a political mover and shaker, he's been more of a pundit. A pundit is a way of talking about a guru, not a guru actually, but somebody who makes available spiritual, transformative information so that people can begin to learn it. So he's interested in the nature of consciousness and enlightenment. Two different aspects. So where does that begin to lead us now? Well, first I've got to say a little about what's my point of view. So, you know, I've been working with Ken since about 1998, 99. We were writing a book together, and I was running the European part of the Institute. Before that, I was a journalist too, and wrote a lot about various spiritual masters, a whole series of approaches. I was also an editor for J.P. Tarcher, which was a spiritual publication. And generally I've been paying the rent because I've been a therapist, a trainer, and a coach. I started teaching NLP here in 1983 and taught about 7,000 people. So I've had, you know, I've just been a seminar junkie, a guru whore. If you had a new manner of finding transformation, I was your guy. I would try anything. So all these things, you know, it's just like, there's a lot of other things I didn't put in there, you know. I started out as a marine biologist. Anyway, and I wrote some of the first articles on various people and various experiments that nobody else had. So I was learning a lot of things up front. So, now, how did the integral vision change my life? How did I personally benefit for it? Well, one thing is that I began to have a different ability to forgive and be compassionate for other people. Knowing the integral approach made me appreciate where people were, that everybody was right. Everybody had some part of a contribution to me. For instance, Ken says, there is nobody in the world that is sufficiently intelligent to be 100% Wrong. Everybody has a certain percentage of the truth. Our job as human beings is to find out what is the truth that another person can give me to complete my own percentage of the truth. So, all my friends were involved. They were contributing to me, even though they were going on different paths. This allowed me to have a lot more love in my life, a lot more feeling appreciated by other people, and appreciating others. It allowed me to learn. It gave me more energy. You know, it's like a strategic wisdom saying, where am I going? Where's this all leading? For the first time, I had, well, actually, not for the first time, but there was a point in my life about 15 years ago where I'd done everything I dreamed of doing when I was a kid. And for about 3 years, I was in an incredibly bad depression because I didn't have any dreams. Now, I have a lot more dreams. So, let's talk about a comparison. Now, the theory of everything is, you know, explaining everything in the world. In physics, it's physical phenomena. Now, it's a big philosophical debate if a theory of everything can be done, because some philosophers say it's impossible to do. But it's an old theory, the integral approach. Plato, back please, back. Okay, Plato started with a variation. Here's the Wilbur quadrants. Who doesn't know the Wilbur quadrants? Raise your hand, please. Who does not know the Wilbur quadrants? Okay, talk to somebody beside you. Okay, you just saved me 10 minutes. Okay, good. So Plato was talking about beauty, truth, and goodness. But this is the its for truth. Beauty is the I, or the subjective point. Goodness is agreeing with other people what is good and what isn't. Thank you. Let's take a look at something that's been here for centuries and centuries, including, there's something that isn't showing up here. Touch it. There he is. Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz all used the great chain of being. This was a way of saying that reality is a matter of, here we are at the center in the material, and there's our body that's contained or generated by our soul, that's our mind, and our soul, which is created by spirit. And it gives you, over here, we have an idea of how matter, physics, life, biology, mind, psychology, the soul, theology, that's how these various ways of creating an integral theory have been created. So, now if you're talking about integral, you have to talk about Plotinus, because he came up with a great theory where he was talking about the various levels of experience. Now, these, you know, creation, logic, concepts, this is almost like Piaget. Pleasure, pain, sensations, vegetative life, function, matter, based on the great chain. So let's take a look at Aurobindo now. Supermind, overmind, world mind, network mind, logical. Oh, they're getting real close here. It's wonderful how these different people, the Greeks and the Indians, can get together. Of course, Aurobindo was always marrying the East and the West. So it's very close, but they had integral theories too. So Aurobindo used the word integral yoga in the early 1900s. He used integral psychology about 20 years later. But he was talking, again, it's the same thing, an integral theory. So thank God we're commemorating Auroville today, because Auroville is one of the great world centers of integral theory. Oh yeah, the 5 sheets. Well, you can go all with this. This is like, the people here from Oroville probably know I've misspelled some of this. But this is again the way spirit, soul, mind, bioenergy, material level, or a bit of call it sheets, but after the Vedanta. And again, it's like an experience, like, who does not know about the idea of holons? Holons and holonic, you know, that life is a matter of nested holes and Chinese boxes. There aren't hierarchies in life. See, here we have holons. Let's go. Now, the best I could find about Irwin's integral model, that was dealing with cosmology by way of physics. That the most fundamental element of reality in the past book was quantum vacuum, but that's no longer here. There's a new reference in Moshka to something else, and we're talking about membranes. So there's and superstring theory. So I love the idea about springs because, you know, a superstring, they figured out it's the relationship of a redwood tree to the size of the galaxy, infinitesimally small. Anyway, some of the major concepts that I've liked and noticed in Irwin's book was the idea of information, the process of communication and knowledge that forms the recipient of the universe. And he uses the concept of akasha from the old Indian tradition to describe what is the foundation, the base, what's at the bottom of all reality. So, putting together quantum vacuum information, string theory, and trying to find a mathematical formula for theory of everything, and that we have an idea that there is an akashic field at the bottom of all reality. At the top of all reality, it's where spirit comes in. At the bottom of all reality, that's where it comes up from beneath the quantum and the membrane and the superstrings from the akashic field. Okay? So, how am I doing?
3 minutes.
Okay. I was talking about Irving. I'm in the groove. Okay. So, let's talk about Wilbur. Oh no, stop. Okay. So this reminds me, so right here, this way, right here. This reminded me of the old joke about the history of the world, because Irving and I were talking about, we both had Jewish parents. And there's an old joke about the history of the world in 5 Jews. That first Moses said, all was the law. And then Jesus said, all is love. Marx said, all is money. Freud said, all is sex. Einstein said, it's all relative. But Laszlo is saying, it's all the A field. Okay, so.
That's 6 Jews, Brian.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so Wilbur's integral model, I'm sure you know, have heard a little about it. The quadrants, the levels and stages, spiral dynamics, lines, states, visions, as I just said, holons. So I'm going to skip a lot of stuff here because I've got half the time. Okay. So go ahead real fast. Just real fast. Real fast. Okay, stop. Even the 7-year-old can get the idea of what the quadrants are about in terms of behavior, psychology, emotions, culture, and systems. Right? Everyone just be right. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And you know what? You've heard a little about spiral dynamics this morning. So, let's go. And these are hold-ons. Oh, you've seen this morning. Okay, so we've got some complementarities here, I think. It's interesting that Irvin used a metaphor about the sea. The ships travel in the sea that create wave interference patterns, and in this way the quantum vacuum carries holographic information onto atoms, molecules, cells, and ecologies. He is talking from a point of cosmology. It's really sort of like science-based. It's subatomic, bottom-up, and it's a top-down spirit, Akasha spirit. Now, Ken, he uses the same metaphor about the sea, but he says spirituality, or the field of the great theory, the great field for all fields, is like wetness in the seas. Wetness is there in everything, every wave, every crest. There's not one wave that is more wet than another wave. There's not wave that is generated by wetness. There is not one wave that is better than another in terms of wetness. That spirit is always already here. So this is like a cosmology from spirit. So he's talking about two forces that seem to work like an Akashic field. Agape, this is from Plato, or a love of the spirit that comes and descends into reality. And eros, it's something that forms reality. But the question is, do they talk to each other? So I asked them, what have they thought to think about each other's model? I asked Ken about 3 or 4 months ago, and we talked a little about Irving, and he said, well, my problem with it is there's no way of finding evidence for the Akashic field. And I said, yeah, but Ken, we don't have very much evidence for peri-nirvana, nirvana, Brahman, Atman either. You might have to die to find out. And then I asked Irving last night, and he said, Ken's model is very complex, and it's a closed system. And I said, yeah, that's why they work together. This is my way of complementing the two. I think Irwin's model works really good outside the pink line and inside the pink line. So at the very bottom of matter, it works very well. At the very outside of matter, where everything is generated, it works really well. Inside, in the various levels of development, and how you're going to do what you're going to do to get from the Akashic to enlightenment, well, Ken's pretty good about that. If you want to find what's out there and what are all the variations of it, Irving's model is very good, and both of them do very well in their own field. One more. Thank you.